Because of the election coming up, I shifted gears in what I'm talking about today. Usually we would have stayed on due process a little longer, but I wanted to get into the political parties and actually go over what the political parties' platforms are. Because some of you are voting age. Some of you have probably registered to vote already. And early voting is open now, so if you've registered to vote, you can go vote now. And I kind of like you to have some idea of what you're voting for. When we talk about the political spectrum, we're talking about different political beliefs all across the whole wide variety of beliefs that are out there. Now in the United States, we tend to be right here in the middle, and we argue vehemently about the very center of this. If you lived anywhere else in the world, you would have all these different beliefs that were available to you. Most places have multi-party systems, and you would have a communist that was elected and a socialist, you'd have a welfare stater, you'd have all these different groups. In the United States, we tend to have Republicans and Democrats, okay? So we're very narrow, and they're very, very close in their beliefs, okay? We think they're not, because we're so used to it, but they're very, very close in their beliefs, and you'll see as we go through. Now this is the traditional way we look at it. Because you always hear the idea of right and left. You're on the right or you're on the left. You talk about politics, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't know what that means. The right is usually considered the conservative Republican side, and the left, liberal Democrat side. And the further you go, the more radical in that direction you get. So while this works great, yes, it's good stair steps along, it's got a problem with it. And that's that it makes these look like they're a long way apart. Communism, fascism look like they're a long way apart. Because fascism is the most extreme to the right you can go, and communism is the most extreme to the left you can go.
Wait, where would a dictatorship be?
A dictatorship is not a type of government. It can fall into any of these. These are different political beliefs. The difference is how they do it.
Okay.
Most of those are going to be either fascist or communist. In reality, if you look at it, we've revised it sometimes, and we put it in a circle like this instead. And the U.S. moderates are right here in the middle, Democrat and Republican, very close. And it moves along, and you start to see that these are actually closer together than you think they are.
Yeah.
Okay? So it kind of starts to make a little more sense on the circle. Either one is okay, whatever you're more comfortable with. The old traditional one helps when you're thinking right and left. This helps if you want to kind of figure out how they're all going to fit together. What we're going to look at in this is we're going to start all the way over here on the far left, and we're going to carry it all the way through, okay? So we'll go from the far left over here to moderates, and then start the moderates and go to the far right, all right? All right, so the far left, way at the end, you have communism, also known as Marxism. It's named after this guy, Karl Marx. Karl Marx and a guy named Friedrich Engels together came up with the idea of communism, at least the modern version, or Marxism. And the big idea that he had was that all property should be held in common. That's where the term communism comes from. The community owns everything. The state holds all property in common. So under communism, everyone is absolutely equal. Nobody owns the factors of production. There is no private property in communism. And no one business is more valuable than another.
Oh, that's stupid.
It's based on absolute social and economic equality. Based on absolute social and economic equality. Again, everybody should be perfectly the same. It is almost always totalitarian. Anybody know what that means?
The whole total of every
Total government is held by
One person?
one person or one party, okay? Almost always one person, but all power is held in one spot, total power, okay? The guy that actually put it in place was this guy Lenin, when he overthrew the czars in Russia and he established the Soviet Union. That's going to exist basically from 1917 until 1989, 1990, right in there whenever it collapsed. Okay?
What do they have now?
We'll get to it as there's not communism anymore. It's put a few parts of the market in, but it's close to it. It's real close. All right. So when I was a kid, there were more communist countries in the world than there were more capitalist countries, and we were terrified of these guys.
Russia.
Yeah, Russia, the Soviet Union, they were communist. China was communist. We were absolutely terrified of the communists when I was a kid. And today, we're not so scared of these guys. There's only one communist country left in the whole world.
When was that?
Who's
You
that?
made us write
Cuba.
about it.
Cuba?
It's, so like the Salem witch trials?
Yeah,
But it didn't happen, but when was that time frame where it was like?
1600s.
1600s?
Yeah.
But when it was like Hollywood people.
Oh.
Oh, you're talking about, oh yeah,
The Hollywood
those
trials.
witch trials. The communist hunts. Yeah,
Okay.
well, yeah, that was the 1940s and 50s.
Uh,
Yeah. And that was the height of this guy. All right, so if we go one step closer to the middle, we get to the radicals, the far left. These guys we do see in America, although they're rare. We almost never see communists, okay? I know we throw that term around and you hear people say that, Bernie Sanders is a communist or Joe Biden's a communist. They're not communists. They don't fall in that category. We do have these guys. Radicals favor a rapid fundamental change in the existing social, economic, and political system. Okay? They're looking for a future golden age. They want things to be better. And they will use extreme measures, including violence sometimes, to achieve their goals. An example of this would be, think about, remember a couple of years ago, the Occupy Wall Street movement, when the guys were in the streets throwing chairs and stuff through windows to protest? That would have been these guys. Some of the protesters in Oakland right now are probably in this category. The ones that are lighting buildings on fire and stuff. They're in this category. The Weather Underground in the 1960s, that's these guys in the picture down here. The Weather Underground was a group that didn't like the draft, and they wanted America to be more liberal and have less of the fundamentals of capitalism. And they did it by making bombs and mailing it to like congressmen and stuff. Yeah, they're willing to use violence to change. Okay? They're willing to use violence. That's going to be important. Go one more step toward the middle, you get what we call the welfare state. I just call this the left, okay? This is Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders falls in this category. Sometimes we call this democratic socialism. These people support the basic ideas of our government. They don't want to completely change everything, but they do want to federalize. That means they want more power to go to the federal government. And they want more socialism. They want more of the state taking care of the people. Okay? So a step towards communism, but not true communism.
So they kind of just want to give people more power.
Bernie Sanders is a socialist. He was a member of the Socialist Party before he ran as a Democrat. He supports democratic socialism. So you got the welfare state people there. These guys don't usually get in power, although they have. I would say Franklin Roosevelt was a member of this. Lyndon Johnson would have been a member of this. These people that expand the federal government. All right, then you get the left of moderate. These are just the liberals. These are the most common. Most of your members of the Democratic Party are going to fall in this category. Okay? Most of your members of the Green Party are going to fall in this category. Some of your libertarians might fall into this category. Not very many, but some will. These guys believe the government should take action to bring about social reform, but they don't think it should do a lot. Okay? These guys would say, we need to have unemployment insurance so if people are lose their job, they don't starve, but it needs to be a short-term unemployment insurance. We need to have a minimum wage, but it shouldn't be a big minimum wage. We need to have food stamps, but the food stamps you shouldn't be eating steak, okay? So they're for the idea of change, but they want to work peacefully. They want to do it inside the system. So if you looked at this, starting at the middle and pushing out, each one kind of agrees with the same basic ideas. You become more extreme and more willing to use violence the further out you go. Does that make sense? Barack Obama would have been an example of this. I think Joe Biden's probably in here. He's in here or in the category right before it. They kind of move between that and welfare state. Bill Clinton would have been in here. Then you get in the middle of the spectrum are your moderates. Your moderates are people that have opinions between them. They may be, a lot of these guys will be liberal on social issues and conservative on fiscal issues. So they might say, I don't like spending a lot of money. I don't like welfare. I don't like that stuff. But on the other side, say, I also don't care about gay marriage or abortion or any of that stuff. These guys will make their minds up on each individual issue. They don't fall in one spot. They're generally a lot more tolerant of other viewpoints. They generally don't hold extreme viewpoints. I made this a few years ago. At that time, Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton were probably the two biggest moderates that we had running. Hillary, after this, moved over. She's much more liberal now. But when I made this, she would have been a moderate. And both of them lost their primaries that year. Jeb Bush lost his primary to, my brain is shut down, to Trump, and Hillary lost hers to Obama. All right, so you get to the right of the moderate, and you get the conservatives. These guys tend to be Republicans. Ronald Reagan is probably the best example of a conservative president we ever had, 80 to 88. These guys think the government should stay out of the lives on most issues, but not on moral issues. Your conservatives tend to believe that the government should stay out of your paycheck, but probably not your bedroom. Okay? They're going to be very concerned about gay rights and abortion rights and stuff like that. They're generally for the status quo. Generally, they want to leave things alone. They don't want to change things a whole lot. However, if they do want to change things, they tend to think that the past was better than today. And they want to kind of turn things backwards to a better time, okay? The Reform Party, the Republican Party, some libertarians will fall in here. You Take one more step beyond that and you get to the reactionaries. These guys are going to have conservative beliefs. They think everything was better in the past. But they're willing to, they really want to turn the clock backwards to another time. They want to undo things. Like the guys that say, want to undo Roe versus Wade. Roe versus Wade was the Supreme Court decision, I think it was in 1972, that made abortion legal. They'd like to turn the clock back to a time when that wasn't there. They want to go backwards a little bit, okay? The segregationists in the 1960s that wanted to resegregate the schools, those guys would have been reactionaries. You go one more step beyond that, you get to the lunatic fringe, the far right. This is like the Ku Klux Klan, okay? These are guys that believe the past was better than today, and they're willing to use violence, okay? The Taliban would be in here on a global scale. The Black Panthers would be the equivalent on the other side. But you got some, they're willing to use violence, okay?
Wakanda?
Not Wakanda forever, no. And the far, far right, when you take the right beliefs all the way to their extreme, you get Hitler and Mussolini. You get fascism, okay? Benito Mussolini, the leader of Italy, was the first fascist. It is vehemently anti-communist. These guys hate the communists, even though they're going to agree on a lot of the ways they run things. They're going to be totalitarian. All power has to be held by one group or one party. They're almost always extremely nationalistic and extremely militaristic. Okay? I love my country, right or wrong.